Welcome to RPG Book Club. On today's episode, we have an incredibly problematic favorite. All right, welcome to the RPG Book Club podcast, the podcast where we play long games together and discuss them in the moment. The first game that we'll be playing will be Shin Megami Tensei Persona 3, and this episode will cover everything from the first time you turn your console on up until you play the game until May 1st. And it's the first save point on May 1st. That's where we're stopping. If you want to play along and you haven't yet, pause this podcast, go enjoy this awesome game for about 4 hours, and then come back, and we'll pick up from there. We picked. By the way, if you're new here, I'm Sam Allman.
I'm Michael Rodriguez.
I'm Elias Warren.
And if you haven't already listened to it, you can go back and listen to the intro podcast where we talk about why we're doing this podcast, who we are, those sorts of things. And importantly, it includes the disclaimer that says that we work for Blizzard, but this podcast does not. And I don't want to say that every episode, so make sure you go and listen to that intro. We picked Persona 3 because it's part of a popular series, so a lot of people have heard of it, but it's not the most popular game in that series, so a lot of people haven't played it. So we knew that this would be a game that a lot of people would be like, oh yeah, I've wanted to play that before, and so they can jump in and start with us at the ground level. We figured this would be a good one to get us all started on.
And a lot of people don't know this, so I'm just going to add if you don't mind. This game came out July 16th, 2006. And during that time, games that were also out were also Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Okami. And so it was a pretty big breath of fresh air because Persona 3 ended up kind of having a cult-like following for its dark themes and stuff like that. I remember there was a few articles just because the characters used guns. They pointed them to their heads.
Which reminds me, if you haven't played this game yet and you're wanting to, this is a big old content warning. The way that you summon your persona, your monster that you fight with, is by shooting yourself in the head with a gun. So if suicide is a big trigger for you or anything like that, fair warning, this game uses that.
It's like an emulation of shooting yourself in the head.
I was very
there's no bullet.
I was very confused about that at first when I saw it in the intro, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but I had a very brief moment of so
yeah.
So if you haven't played it, full disclosure, that's a part of it. If you want to just listen to the podcast, it's literally you press a button, I want to do a skill, and it happens, and that's it. So this podcast won't have a lot of those triggers in it, but if you play the game, every couple seconds you're going to see somebody shooting themselves. So wanted to definitely put that disclaimer before we get too far into the game, so that people would know what they're getting into.
There's definitely a lore reason behind why they do
yeah. And another reason why we picked Persona 3, to go back to that for a second, is that it's available on the PS3 Virtual Console as a PS2 Classic. It's available on the PSP as Persona 3 Portable. And if you're one of the 7 people who own a Vita, it's available both as the PS2 and the PSP version are available on the Vita. And I am playing on the PS3 using which is the Persona 3 FES, shorts for Festival. I'll be playing that version on the PS3. Eli's playing on the original PS2, and Michael here will be playing on the PSP, and we'll be talking about all the differences between the versions as we go along, as an added coolness to it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Other than that, I will say that we're specifically playing Persona 3 FES or FES, which is a kind of remake of this game. It's a special edition more of Persona that changed a lot of things, how the battle system worked and stuff.
Experience gains, etc.
Yeah, if you're going back to play Persona, you can play the original if you want, but FES is kind of the definitive version of the game. And so there's not really a reason to go and do the other one, but if say you happen to have it, like you'll be able to follow us story wise just fine. You'll probably just have to grind more than us is the main difference between that version. Okay. From what I found out on Wikipedia, just looking through.
I checked my copy. It is FES. It's not the original. But I just started with the original Journey or whatever it was.
Yeah. The biggest thing that Persona 3 FES added is a game mode called The Answer, which is like super hard version of the dungeon, and like you start it with not a whole lot of story. You just kind of get thrown in, and you only can get items that you find in that dungeon. It's like it's kind of like the Master Trials in Breath of the Wild. It's like that for this game. It's like a harder like 6 to 20 hour experience depending on how good you are. And so we might like give it a shot at the end of it and do a special episode on it. That's not like as part of it, but it's really hard and we might all suck. And so we might not actually finish that one.
Cool.
So before we get started, I did want to say everybody's relation to this game. Like I know Eli has he said in the first episode, the last game you played was Final Fantasy VI. So I don't know if there's anything else you've like heard of about Persona or like how familiar are you with this?
I have definitely heard of Persona. I was hearing a lot about Persona 5 when that came out very recently because that was on the Switch, right? Or
no, it was on the PS4.
Okay, well, I was hearing a lot about it. And I have friends who are like super mega into Persona, but have never really talked to me about it because I've never played a Persona game. I had heard of Shin Megami Tensei, but again, I don't know nothing about anything related to Shin Megami Tensei, the series, or any of the Persona games. I have seen some like analyses of characters in the Persona games, specifically the LGBT ones. I'm transgender and bisexual, so I'm half of LGBT. So I'm coming at this from a 32-year-old trans man's perspective of the game. But I've, like the most I've ever heard about any Persona is related to those aspects of it.
What about you, Michael? Have you ever played any Shin Megami Tensei game before?
Shin Megami, huh? I'm kidding. No, I have been playing. I like Shin Megami Tensei games. I grew up in an environment that would not have welcomed Shin Megami Tensei games, so I naturally gravitated to Shin Megami Tensei games. My first experience was not with Persona 1, but with Persona 2, but that's because at the time in the US, people didn't play Persona 1, and I think Persona 2 had only been released. And I'm pretty sure someone's going to correct me on that. I hope someone does. But my first experience was Persona 2. It was really rare at the time. And so when you did play it, a lot of people didn't even understand it anyway. Shortly after that, I played Nocturne, which you guys understand is Shin Megami Tensei 3, Digital Devil Saga, and then the Summoner. I played some of the Summoner series. Persona 3 came out and I was 16, 17 at the time, and I liked it a lot. So I have played Persona 3. I have played Persona 3 FES as well, and so playing Persona 3 Portable is really a cool experience because I'm choosing to play as the female protagonist at this time. But I would consider myself like a Shin Megami Tensei fan. Shin Megami Tensei, generally speaking, as a franchise, has spoken about a lot of kind of like real world topics, like suicide or LGBT topics or homophobia even. And I've always appreciated Shin Megami Tensei's like a blatant shock factor with kind of like how much it can bring to your face and shock you with like shooting guns in your head and summoning dick demons and just stuff like, I like how you can like shock a lot of people with with all of that, but behind all of that shock factor, there's a lot of good theme and story to talk about. So I'm really excited to be here. Really excited to hear the perspective of you two, who has very little Persona experience or none at all, and so I'm excited.
I had absolute zero idea that Persona even had existed until I was in college. My friend Mizael was talking about the best game of all time that he had ever played was Persona 4. And I'm like, what even is a Persona and why are there 4 of them? And he's like, well, actually Persona 4 is like the 9th game in the series. And so he went back to his dorm. He got in his dorm, he did not have a PS2, but he had his PS2 copy of Persona 4. Like, it was that important to him. And he went back to his dorm and he grabbed it. It was like, go home and play this right now. And I played about 6 hours of it. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, it's because it's the game. If you are unfamiliar with it, if you aren't playing along with us, just listening, is like half like high school visual novel, half JRPG, half fucked upness, and so the visual novel parts of it, I was like, oh, this is awesome. It's like the dating simulators on Flash I would play in high school, and I had no idea why I was loving them so much, because it's just like pure drama, pure story, and it's like teenagers and stuff like that. And like that by itself, like you could take the RPG part out of it and just have it a visual novel about people who are disappearing and going comatose and the mystery of it, and that would be one of the best games of all time. And then you add on to it the RPG and the fighting stuff and all of that part of the game, and like all of that makes it amazing. And I loved that game, or Persona 4 specifically. I loved it for the 6 hours I played, but never got around to playing it all the way through. And then Mizael transferred colleges and took his copy back with him, so like I just fell off with it. And that is the only bit of Persona that I knew. Like, I didn't even realize that the Shin Megami Tensei was like the main series, sub-series number 4. I thought that Shin Megami Tensei was just like the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Like, the game is Oblivion, but I just thought it was like Elder Scrolls Oblivion. So when it was like Shin Megami Tensei Persona, I thought that was the Elder Scrolls, and then 4 was the 4th one. Like, I had no idea anything until I met Michael and I asked him what game he wanted to make a Pokemon Go out of, and he said Shin Megami Tensei. And I was like,
it just makes sense.
Yeah, now like I get it. But like at the time, I was just like, "Oh, what even is this?" But
yeah, my first experiences when I first heard about it in like GameStop, and it was outside of Persona, because I had played Persona 2, but I had missed, I guess, that it was also Shin Megami Tensei. And so when I came across Nocturne, I was like, I feel like I know this game. And the person that I was working with at the time, he was like, this is a really hard RPG. I really suggest that you play it. He's had like hour-long battles in hard mode in like Nocturne. And when he said that, I was like, oh my God, I've got to play this game. And so I picked up Nocturne, and ever since that, really, it's been like no turning back for me. I've also played Shin Megami Tensei 4 on the 3DS as well. It was also a really great game. But yeah, no, Shin Megami Tensei has been around for a while. It's a really dark story. I'm really happy and excited for you guys to hear the rest of the story, because Persona 3 is drama.
Just from the first month in the game, I could tell that was probably going to be the case. Yeah. First of all, I mean, they're in high school, so of course there's drama.
Of course it is. So unless anyone has anything else to say before we get started, I figure we could jump in. Basically, the format is I'm going to be reading along, and my notes is just like story beats that happen. You guys can interject and talk about things that like I missed or you thought about along the way, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sounds great.
Sound good?
Yeah. I might pause you in between to like talk about some of the breaks and differences that I experienced in Persona 3 Portable.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the big difference there is not only are you playing as the girl, but because of that, your relationship to all the characters and therefore the social links change. And so like I'm really interested to hear along the way where I'm like, oh, I had to go and talk to Kenji because blah blah blah, and you're like, man, screw Kenji, he's not even
See,
important,
I
et
didn't
cetera,
even
et cetera.
realize you had mentioned something about playing a girl earlier, and I was like, there was a choice because
No,
it's only
Huh.
on the portable
Okay.
version was there a choice. Yeah, that was the big thing that they added in that one was a
that's
second
definitely a nice thing
protagonist.
to add.
which is-
I think.
Yeah.
It is.
And another thing, I keep thinking of things to talk about before we actually start. For Persona 3 Portable, all of the stuff that happens at the school and the station and stuff like that, those are all 100% visual novels. So like he picks where he wants to go from a list, and it's like a JPEG that pops up and talks about it. He doesn't have to go and explore it and stuff, so that he could focus the PSP hardware to just be the Tartarus part of the game, which I think is a like for any game series. I think this one is the best way for it. Like you couldn't do Final Fantasy VII as a visual novel that you just jumped in for the dungeons. Like it just wouldn't work as well. But this one, like with the dichotomy of the two parts of the game, I think that's a really cool idea and a great way to save space for the portable version.
Definitely.
I think it's I mentioned this once before, but I do definitely think that it's an appropriate way to play Shin Megami Tensei because it doesn't deviate from the way that you play Shin Megami Tensei 1 or even Persona 1 or 2. I mean, it's almost identical to that in that like there's no full 3D sprites unless if you're in a battle, and everything else is like almost like mid-def 2D sprite, which just reminds me of again like they use like a Persona 2 engine in this for at least like navigating around anything that isn't Tartarus. So it is pretty interesting though how the story looks kind of different now, even just as a female protagonist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But let's go ahead and jump in. The first thing I noticed when I turned on the game, and I do this every time for every RPG that I play, is I let the intro movie play, and this one had a super bumping song. The music in this game is super great,
phenomenal.
Battle, then I'll take it to the street with his new rules. Check off the gloves, rip trees to down. Gotta prove my skills, so get down. My lyrical gems to roll, battle smack down now. Gotta shoot to kill, I shoot to skill. Don't you be afraid, man's gotta do how it feels. 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, 10. I flip the script to make it to the top 10. Go.
The intro movie was like half gameplay, half music video, which I thought was cool. So I was typing up my notes about that video that I started, and I don't know if you guys saw this. There's a second opening movie instead of a demo. You know, like when you have the title screen up and you let it sit for 10 minutes, it'll go to a demo to reduce burn-in. That demo is a full like crazy weird music video.
Oh wow!
About Persona 3, and it's like. It's super awesome. If you haven't seen it, I recommend just loading up the title screen and waiting for a bit. And it was like super awesome. And since that's one of my favorite like pleasures, like for instance, me and my wife played through Tales of Grace's F together, and every time it was on, we would like full on dance and be goofy and just like that was our jam. Like we would love that song. Including one time we went to. I used to work at a movie theater, and I hooked up my PS3 to the projector so that we were going to watch. I think it was Hook. We were going to watch Hook on Netflix all together, like me and my coworkers. And I went to Tales of Grace's F to start that intro so that me and Summer could like jam out to it on the huge surround sound speakers. Like that makes or breaks a JRPG for me. It's just the song it makes you listen to before the title screen. And Persona 3's was like amazing. Right off the bat.
Yeah, the musical score in this game is somewhere between like Japanese R&B and Jet Set Radio.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know how to describe it other than like funky and
the game. It reminded me the most about for the soundtrack was The World Ends With You. Did you ever play that game?
Yeah, it's a pretty similar soundtrack in that it's like it's like, I don't know how to like neo-Japanese upbeat. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
It's really weird. It's great.
It's so good. I'll actually throw in right here. It's a song. It's my favorite one that we've listened to so far. It's the song that comes on when like drama is happening in the visual novel part. So it's like, but wait, what about Junpei? And then like the dunka 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 music starts.
Yeah.
This is something I'm going to be talking about more, but I got out of the music some kind of Twin Peaksy vibes, just because it feels kind of
I can see that.
like it doesn't quite fit the mood of the game itself, and it's just kind of like it's more upbeat, and it's got like a definite like upbeat rhythm to it, but it had that kind of jazzy feel that reminded me of when I was watching Twin Peaks.
Mhm.
That's a show I've gotten super into, so expect me to make a lot of references to it.
It's
Yeah,
it works
definitely.
for this game
Just
a lot
from
too.
what I've seen so far.
So now 20 minutes into the podcast, we've made it past the title screen, and I noticed that you can import your save from Persona 3, at least on the PS2 version.
Yeah.
So if you've played through on the non-special edition, but you hadn't beaten it yet, it doesn't force you to start all the way over. You can import it, it'll make the changes, and you can continue and play that version, which I thought was like super cool for a game of that. Like that's something that in my brain I saw being a thing at like the advent of the Xbox 360. Like I know .hack did it, but every 360 game did it. Like Mass Effect did it, and those sorts of things. So it's weird for me to see this game from way before that in 2006 having a save import system,
Yeah,
which I thought was
that
really
was
cool.
something that I hadn't expected. I had thought that was from much newer games, but I mean, I guess that is not the case. Yeah.
Obviously not. It was a good little slice of the future to see on this game from 12 years ago. Right off the bat, the game starts up and it has an intro movie, and like nothing happens, but everything happens in the intro. Like you're just walking along and you walk up to this place, but like while you're walking up, weird shit happens. Like people are turning into coffins and like clocks are turning green, and like it instantly sucks you into this world where you know that something isn't right. Like
Yeah, I was having quite a few what the fuck moments while I was watching this. And like all the while the intro is going on, I'm also taking tons and tons of screenshots, so I wasn't fully able to invest myself in it. I should rewatch it at some point, but I mean, another thing that I noticed is that it kept going to a girl like holding a gun to her head, and I'm like, why is she about to commit suicide? What is going on?
Yeah, no, that's a very strong theme in Persona. Like I said, like a lot of it isn't going to make sense, and in most Persona games, they don't up until you're like 5 hours in. But yeah, if you've never played the game at home, there's coffee, like the at a certain time, according to in-game and midnight, you know, like you see this character, whichever main character that you're playing, like go outside, and suddenly there's like coffins everywhere, and then it cuts to a montage with one of the characters, Yukari, with a gun to her head, and so you're not really told a lot of what's happening. You're just given really high intense, dramatic kind of iconography to react to.
What the intro cutscene reminded me of is a bunch of there's this like subgenre of anime that I got really into in college. The best one and the most like evocative of this subgenre is Speed Grapher. I don't know if either of you have ever heard of or watched it, but it's like it's kind of anime where it's like, this is something normal, but what if it was really weird? And so like in Speed Grapher, it's about like, oh, all these business people, but they happen to all be part of like this cult that gives them superpowers, and they're like crazy, like depraved stuff is going on. And that like instantly gave me that sort of vibe in those intro cutscenes, and really set me up for like everything that's coming afterwards. So I knew like just from this intro anime cutscene, like even if the next 6 hours were going to be me studying for finals, I would know that something's not right there. And it's like Alfred Hitchcock talks about this, talked about this thing where it's like, if you see a movie scene and two people are talking in a cafe, like that's just two people talking in a cafe. But if you start at the bottom of the screen and you see that there's a bomb under their table that's counting down for 3 minutes, then you go up and they're having a 3-minute long conversation, you'll see like everything they say suddenly becomes super important, because you know that something's not right. Like that's suspense. That's like how you make people want to know what's happening next, is you want to show them the bomb going off. And so seeing the coffins and the gun to your head and all of those things right off the bat really made me like excited for where it was going, because right at the end of it, so you turn around and Yukari's right there and she has a gun, and you're like, what the heck? And then she's like, oh, you must be the new kid, welcome to our dorm. And it like dials all that weirdness back to like zero, and you're the new kid on the first day of school. And it just like that dichotomy, and like the art direction where it looked like you were walking into a creepy like warehouse filled with zombies and stuff. Like it felt super creepy, and it's just a boring old dorm room. Like that was like that art direction, like right there, just from the like direction of the game. Like I knew I was playing something special at that point.
Yeah, I will say that, you know, I distinctly remember the beginning of Persona 3, and the difference between Persona 3 Portable was really, really sharp. Really sharp in that, like, you know, Persona 3, when the main character, when it's a he, you get a sense of him just being like odd, right? Like this main character is like quiet, kept to himself, and you don't exactly know why he's there, although you know, later in school the teacher will reference something. But I kind of find it like Persona characters are usually really appropriate for the story that's being told. And when I'm playing as this main character, like I'm all of a sudden like this, she doesn't look weird. Like this main character doesn't look odd. Like she doesn't look reserved. And so it was really weird experiencing it through this lens when the character isn't I guess as dark or as somber or as abstract looking as the male counterpart. It was just even weird, like kind of interfacing with Yukari and Mitsuru. Wait, it's Mitsuru, right? Yeah. Jesus gosh. In the dorm, because like it's almost like all of the responses that the character gave, like walking past these coffins and talking to like the boy, made sense because the character is kind of weird himself, whereas the main protagonist character does not feel like that at all, because you never see her face. Like there's no cinematic in the Persona 3 Portable for to have like a relationship with this character. You're just immediately like it only says like, you do this, you go here, you go there. There is no cinematics, like none at all. And so there's a lot of disconnect, because you see the main character in Persona 3, he is, or when it's a male, he is like riding on a train, he's like looking out, you can kind of see that he's listening to music, trying to ignore everybody, and you kind of have like a relationship with that already. And then Persona 3 Portable, with the female character, at least I haven't tried the male, you don't get that chance. So it's just like literally like you reading text, and then you show up to coffins. That's it. So that's why it's a little disjointed.
Yeah.
That's
when,
cool though,
when I'm
that
playing
like,
it through.
because visual novels do that a lot. Like visual novels, even though you name your character at the beginning, they almost never refer to it. It's always you do this, you do that, that sort of thing. So I knew
It's
that
very
they
Shin Megami
were
Tensei, yeah.
like for the portable, they would make it more visual novel like, but like they leaned heavy into it. Like it sounds like they made a Persona 3 visual novel with the Tartarus stuff on later, which is
I would even call it a Persona 3. It's a Persona game in a Shin Megami Tensei traditional RPG style. So if you go look at Persona, if you look at Shin Megami Tensei 4, you would get a near exact experience that you would in Persona 3 now for portable, except Persona 3 portable uses the battle system for some of its cinematic effect.
oh, that's cool. So
It was cute.
So the next thing I really noticed, so the first night when you get there, they basically are just like, here's your room, go to bed. Like nothing really cool is happening, and then
You feel shoved along though a little bit. Like, what'd you see? Nothing. Okay, great, go.
Yeah,
Bye.
I kind of felt like, when is the game going to start for a while? Because it did feel like I was getting told go here, go there, and just doing it.
Yeah. And so the next day you go to school and you see everything there, and you meet this character named Junpei, and like all you do when you meet him is he's just like, oh hey, you're the new kid, do you want to walk home together? And like that scene on this version just made the game feel so alive, because like you're just walking through this alleyway on your way back home, and like there's like 20 NPCs like doing their own thing. Like there's a little story going on for each character like in the background, and it just like it really made the game feel like whole. Like it felt like you were in this universe, you were really doing these things, and it like I don't know, it's just like it evoked a feeling from me that made me really excited to see everything that's going to be happening next.
Real quick note about Junpei. I'm super into voice actors, and I immediately recognized him as being Vic Mignogna, who plays Edward Elric.
Yeah,
So I thought that
for
was
some
cool.
reason I didn't recognize it immediately until like a couple hours down the line. You're finally in Tartarus doing stuff, and there's one way he says like "Hey, I just leveled up" or something. I'm like, holy crap, that's Edward! How haven't I noticed for like this whole time that it was him? But
So the cool thing about Junpei is that when you're playing as the female lead, the next day when you go to school, you walk with Yukari, and the rumors that happen, like, ooh, look at this main character and Yukari and a Yucatan walk together, like, it's so cool. Like that even happens with the female lead. But when you meet Junpei, there's actually some really interesting dialogue change that happens. Let me pick that up here, because I actually wrote down I wrote down what I saw. Oh yeah, Yukari immediately talks about Junpei's behavior. She says that like he is in the creepiest, most perverted way, like weird, and that he's like the poster boy of like sexual harassment, which I found really interesting, because when you were going to school, Yukari tells you like, oh hey, like I love riding the train, like this is what this train's name is. This our school was built on a man-made island, and you don't get that information in Persona 3. No one tells you, right? So like I'm like going this, I'm just like, holy crap, a decade later I find out more lore about this world and I didn't even know.
Yeah.
But it was also really cool to see like the character's internal reflection on Junpei and who he actually is supposed to be in this full storyline. Like, to the male, he's not going to exhibit like sexual harassment, because why would he? But it's cool to see that this is a different profile of Junpei, and that he's a little bit like high school skeevy horn dog. You're like, back the fuck off, like, and I like that, because we didn't know that up until the female protagonist was here.
It's like they purposefully left that kind of stuff out, and I know that probably isn't the case, just because of how they were made and everything, but knowing that, it does feel like they kind of purposefully left it out in order to keep the male protagonist kind of ignorant, kind of unaware I guess is a better word, that this is part of his personality, which is very real. That's incredibly real.
Yeah, like just hearing that, like, because they very easily could have done like say what Mass Effect does. Mass Effect does it a little better than this, but like when you pick male or female, that doesn't really change anything except for who you can fall in love with in Mass Effect. Like that's the only thing that really changes. They could have done like a base level of that, but like adding in the thing that like the girls go to the bathroom together and they talk like warning you, like she literally was just warning you, like, hey, Junpei's kind of gross, watch out for him, which is like incredibly real for girls. And like they actually changed the character, like that stands in for that protagonist, instead of just flipping a gender switch and keeping the game about the same.
Yeah, it definitely makes for some very interesting social commentary in relation to
and there's a lot
genders and sex and that sort of thing.
I that was just something that I this was the first thing that I realized, was just the response that Yukari gets, because in the original Persona 3 she's already kind of like about Junpei, right?
But she doesn't go into it. It just sounds like they don't,
right? But it's like it's almost like an annoying brother or sister relationship that you can mistake it by. But it's really easy to forget that this is a high school game and that this is supposed to be painted as high school kids by adults. So like they like how she might express grotesqueness towards someone who's actually a little skeevy may have not been what they exactly wanted it to be the first time around. And I appreciate that they were like, let's look at Junpei, let's revisit him, and what is he to women? He's actually creepy. He's like he's actually the poster child of sexual harassment, which means that he's just kind of creepy overall. But it just gives us another profile on Junpei, and I really like that they did that to this character, because it's real, it's honest,
absolutely.
And it makes, when you look at Junpei and what the things that he cares about, it makes sense.
Yeah, and like there's a line later that like when I played it, it sounded like a Helga G. Pataki type negging type thing, where he was like, because he says like, oh, Yucatan, you couldn't be the student council president because you're not hot enough, or something like that. And it was just like, oh, they have animosity and they're picking on each other, but just means I totally ship it and they're going to get along later. But hearing like this idea of Junpei in the background, that's not how she receives it from him. She receives it as like, stop negging me. I see what you're doing. You're just trying to get all up in this because you're a gross, creepy man.
Yeah.
And like, like that's,
and even when, go ahead.
I was just saying, and like, that's really like cool that they like completely change your relationship with these people.
Yeah, or even when he's like talking about like Akihiko and the pack of girls following him, like, oh my god, he's so lucky. And it's like, it gives you just a different context as what this character means when he says what he says. Because I affectionately liked Junpei a lot until I played the protagonist of this female. And I'm just like, wow, he's actually like, oh my god, one of my favorite characters is, I have a problematic fave. What is my problem? Oh my god, like, well, what am I doing? Right? Like, oh my god, Junpei, not you. But it makes complete sense for this character archetype. You know, he has a little bit of an attitude. He's kind of jealous. He probably doesn't get laid. And this makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think there's something to be said too for like the current climate as far as you know, sexual harassment and things like that go. It fits really well with like the whole, you know, well, we thought this was a good person and now suddenly it turns out that they've done some really horrible skeevy things. You know, and
if you look, his name is actually Junpei Weinstein.
I don't know that he's that bad. He doesn't have power over these girls, so there's at least that. Or, well, I guess he doesn't have power that we know of over them.
Right?
He has powers, just not that kind. But yeah, I think it's a really interesting takeaway for the sort of climate that we're dealing with today. That, you know, Sam and I aren't getting enough information about this character, and you, Michael, are getting all the information. And that's something that women deal with anyway. Being transgender and having grown up not identifying as female, but basically being told, "Oh, you're a girl," and that sort of thing. I had a lot of experience with guys being creeps, and based off of my own and based off of talking to my friends, and I still empathize very strongly with that. So, like, it's just interesting to see that coming to light in a video game from 12 years ago.
Yeah, that was the thing that I was most surprised about, was that they, even though they made this on the PSP and it was the P3 portable, which came out after Persona 3 came out, they still elected to put this line in. So I looked at that line and I was just like, developers, you have no excuse. Like Atlas did this a long time ago. Right. Like at least they bring out the topic, which I loved. Another thing that I noticed is that there's an instinct. The game feels different when it's like you, Mitsuru, Yukari, like calling the shots. Like, hey, we have a meeting. Let's go do this. And for a few moments, it feels like, because Junpei and Akihiko are such not like non-integral parts of the initial party, you can kind of like just feel like Mitsuru and this female protagonist and Yukari are kind of all handling it, because that's where a lot of the drama happens at first, is between Yukari, Mitsuru, and your main character, and then it includes Akihiko and then Junpei. But at the beginning there, it felt like it was just like those three women, and I was like, like this really changes the way that this game kind of like can introduce what it's about and how it looks when you're introducing this first with three women who live in a dorm, and then Akihiko, and then now Junpei.
And then suddenly these men show up, and
right. Like I saw that and I was like, wow, that's a really interesting, different way to approach it. Yeah.
So back in the story, we still are only on our first day at school.
There's a lot to talk about.
Right. Yeah, like the first, like in my notes, I have a paragraph for first day, like 3 paragraphs for second day, a paragraph for third day, and then the rest of it, like barely a line for each day because the game opens up. But these first days are like really jam packed and like getting you to understand the world and that sort of stuff. So it's like, if you think of it as an extended cutscene, it's about an hour and a half of cutscene where you're barely even playing for the first beginning of it. But it's like, it's all, because it has that visual novel feel, like it all feels important. It doesn't feel like watching a Metal Gear Solid 4 cutscene that's an hour and a half long type thing.
Yeah. There's a lot of a lot of sim properties in the game, so it helps walk you through the storytelling with a lot of choices that you can make. Yeah. And although it's not gameplay, it's choice making, and it maintains some engagement.
Yeah. And so on the first day, there is an assembly where they were talking about stuff. And to speak again on the topic we were just on, a lot of people, like this was the first guy, but then it's like every person I meet asks if me and Yukari had sex because we walked to the school together on the first day.
And they won't it's like, drop it.
And so it's like, even though every time I'm like, hey, we're just friends, we just live in the same dorm, like the rumors spread anyway. And like in a similar thing to like how we saw that opposite side of Junpei, like it's speaking to the like toxicity that is high school, and something as simple as we live in the same building, so we walk together to school because we have school at the same time, created all of these rumors that just won't die. Like a month in, everybody's still like, oh, hey, I wish I had a girlfriend as hot as yours. And I'm like, me and Yukari aren't dating. Like this is not a thing. Like every single person talks about that.
I really want my character to just be like, I'm gay. And then that can be the end of it. Like that's, of course, that would, being in high school, bring up its own set of problems, but still.
Right.
This is 2009. This is 10 years after I was first in high school. I'm certainly more progressive now. But yeah, it just like, it was nagging at me. Yeah, it's incessant is a good word for it.
So this is jumping a little ahead because you don't meet Kinji for like a week or so. But every character named Kinji in anything I've ever watched is always this weird, like obsessed with girls, like otaku stereotype. And this Kinji was the same way. Like every time he's talking, he's like, man, I want I want a girlfriend as hot as yours, and like, do you think like I would ever have a shot with Yukari like you did? And like, he's just obsessed with that sort of thing, and it's so weird. But like the like idea of like it just imagining everybody's asking you that, it meant like people aren't asking Yukari that, they're assuming that about Yukari. And so it's just like, imagine like what it would be like living in Yukari's shoes, where she knows like every single person around here is talking about me because they all think that I'm cute and they think that I'm screwing the new guy.
I'd be a fucking nervous wreck. I would just be a wreck.
Yeah, it's like
it's funny, like in the school when Junpei mentions it, he's like, you two were looking cute walking together. Like Yukari's like, can you not? Like, this student just got here. Like, don't start these rumors, you know. Like, and after that, I don't think I heard it much.
On yours,
this specific character.
That's cool.
Maybe it'll show up more.
Yeah, we see it constantly with the male character.
Yeah, you do. And each time on about it,
and each time it gives you the opportunity to be a skis ball yourself, and like you can choose, we're dating, or like that's for you to find out, but imply that we totally had sex. And it's like, it grossed me out that everyone was saying it, so I didn't say it. But you could like conceivably play a skis ball version of the main character where you say yes to all of these things. I totally
have not been doing that. Like, I very pointedly have not.
That's hilarious.
After the assembly, it zooms you through the rest of the day, and you walk home with Junpei. That's where you meet him for the first time. And then after you go to bed, Kitsuru and Akihiko are talking about kids who are affected with what they call apathy syndrome, and they don't really go into it there. But the next day at school, you hear all these rumors, like every time you come to school, and the school music plays, which is a banger, of course. That you hear people saying rumors outside the school, and that's how you get a lot of your plot, really, is the rumors. And they describe apathy syndrome, which is basically like being a walking zombie, where you're just like not responsive, you don't say words, you just kind of like are sitting there not doing anything whatsoever. And like, that's horrifying to me personally.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty much a good way to describe apathy syndrome, where like they're there, they're not necessarily cognitive, but they do speak with speech. So like one of the students said that someone was just saying it's coming, and that's it.
Yeah. So that nothing really happens that day at school, but after school you meet Ikutsuki, and he says that his name is hard to say, and it very much is.
Ikutsuki is not hard to say. I was actually sitting there going like, you're Japanese, Ikutsuki should be super easy for you to say. But whatever, go on about how hard it is.
Right. And more than likely, so JRPGs are really, really hard to translate, because like at no point in the history of all JRPGs has a developer sat there and been like, I wonder how this is going to work overseas. They just write it. And so the JRPGs in English all have this weird thing where you can see the seams. Like, you can see right there, he probably was talking about like the spelling of his name. Like, he probably used an onyomi instead of a kunyomi for his name, like something like that. Like, that's probably what he was talking about. But on our side, you're like, your name is 7 or 8 letters long. It's not that hard to say. Like, and so like that's one of those things. Like, I don't see those a lot in Persona, which is crazy for it being a game that's incredibly Japanese. It is 100% about the Japanese high school experience, but I'm not seeing a whole lot of those like translation seams where like in Final Fantasy VIII, there's a 15-minute like rant that Squall says about not wanting his name to be in the past tense, and like it just doesn't translate. Like it doesn't make any sense on our side, but you kind of just have to have it because there's 15 minutes of it, and so there's not, I haven't seen besides this one part like anywhere in the game where it doesn't translate that well. But speaking of Ikutsuki, his haircut is really gross, and I don't trust him. I don't trust him because of his haircut at all.
Yeah, I kind of got weird vibes from him.
Yeah, especially because the first time you meet him, he stays up all night watching you sleep, and
yeah, that's a big part of why I had very weird vibes about him. I'm like, you're a teacher, you're an adult, and you're watching this 11th grade boy sleep.
Yeah,
there's something wrong with that.
So while he's watching you sleep, you find out the reason why, and this is where the RPG part of everything starts to kick in. So every night at midnight, there's a quote unquote dark hour where normal humans turn into coffins and are oblivious to the hours passing, but Yukari, Ikutsuki, Mitsuru, and myself, and probably all of the friends that you meet that have a
the potential
name.
Yeah, so like all the people that have a talking head, like they'll pop up and have like their character portrait. They probably all have the potential and will join your party at some point because that's how JRPGs work. But so all of us have the potential and we're immune to the coffin thing. And some people who are immune to the coffin thing get attacked by these monsters called shadows. And when you get attacked, that's how you get apathy syndrome. So those of us who have the that have the potential, it's our job to fight the shadows and stop it. So
yeah, some kid turned real goopy, and I had just seen an episode of Ancient Magus's Bride, which is a great anime, by the way, where someone did just that the night before. So it was very very.
He was consumed by a shadow. That's what that was.
So after everyone watches you sleep, you go into a dream per se, and you go into this place called the Velvet Room, and you meet Igor and Elizabeth for the first time. And in the opening cutscene, there's this little boy that makes you sign a contract, and it's like weird, and you don't know what's going on. But that contract was a contract to enter the Velvet Room, apparently. And so they bring you in and give you a velvet key, and that's all we really know at this point of it.
Kind of. Let me go ahead and explain a little bit better into this, just because the Velvet Room is kind of symbolic through Persona. When we're talking about Persona, the Velvet Room and things like the Velvet Room are kind of iconic. You know, the Velvet Room is to Persona is what Persona is to the Velvet Room, but it is not so much that in order to access the Velvet Room you had to sign the paperwork. It is that those who were able to sign the paperwork at all can access the Velvet Room.
Oh, so if you didn't even see the kid and can't sign the paperwork,
yeah. I mean, it's like if you don't, because like as we saw already, or as players will find out, as the listeners will find out, no one else can see the Velvet Door. But that's for a very specific reason. That's because like your character specifically has the ability to shift through different personas, which in this series was always like the mark of the protagonist, right? And so it's not so much. What they're saying there is it's kind of like it's really important to pay attention to the beginning part, right? Because if it sounds like a deal, it's because it is a deal. And that's the way that these kind of Persona games and Shin Megami Tensei games work, is that they're not playing games with you. When they say like they expect you to take full responsibility of your actions, it's because the character specifically has the power to be able to like do that in this game, whereas people like Junpei, Yukari, Mitsuru, they're just normal awakened Persona users.
Gotcha.
But the Velvet Room has always existed a lot in Persona. Igor is he's a really weird character. It's funny, when you first access the Velvet Room in PlayStation 3 in Persona 3 Portable, Igor asks you like, hey, you heard a voice earlier. What did that voice sound like? Was it a male or female? And I think it's because you can choose between like male or female assistant for Igor, because Elizabeth is the assistant for Igor in Persona 3. But when you say like it was a she, and I chose a she just to remain consistent with like Persona 3 girl power. Finally, just like, you know, like I'm so like really happy about that. And also Persona and Elizabeth in Persona 3 Arena was really broken, FYI. Just it was a fighting game, really good. But so I chose her, and she came out and she was like, "Hi, I'm Elizabeth. Pleasure to meet you." I'm like, wait, if I had chosen that it was a man, would it have been like a male version of Elizabeth?
Let me look that up, because that would be cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
So as soon as I got into the Velvet Room, I got some like, and I've already talked about Twin Peaks.
Oh my god, he is hot. His name is Theodore. And,
Theodore.
Let me toss this link in our Discord so y'all can see this guy. But this is the male Elizabeth.
Yeah. Oh
Wow.
yeah, they wanted to add like a fucky assistant. Yeah,
Wow.
because it was always Elizabeth. It was always like a female. But I guess like if you were playing like the female protagonist, like, you know, the people are just like, fuck that, I want a hot ass assistant male. Like, you know, like I could see why someone would choose this over like the yes, master, I'm Elizabeth.
Yeah,
you know, sort of trope going on. Oh wow, me too. I immediately regret my decision of not choosing. Yeah, I'm gonna go back and choose Theo.
Even Sam is gay for Theo.
Right? Yeah. I'm gonna ship my character with Theo.
Yeah, totally.
Right.
So anyway, so I know I've talked about Twin Peaks a lot. It's going to keep coming up because it's something that's been really impactful to me. But like going into the Velvet Room, it definitely reminded me of going into the Red Room in Twin Peaks. Igor very much reminded me of the Man from Another Place, if you've watched the original series, and I don't know if you two
I've never watched Twin Peaks, so I feel like I'm new with Twin Peaks in Persona.
It's really great and bizarre, and I would definitely recommend.
Persona.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend watching it sometime. But I got those vibes, and especially of Elizabeth coming in. It kind of reminded me of Laura Palmer, and but that was just kind of the vibe that I got from it, and especially when other people were like unable to see the doorway. You know, there's a special entrance that you have to go through and that sort of thing. So I thought that was very, very interesting, just from my own personal experiences. So,
Yeah.
but it didn't answer a lot of
fact.
questions.
Fun fact: I didn't realize that nobody else could see it because I didn't choose that dialogue option.
Oh.
Like I'm playing the guy, my guy, kind of like aloof and uncaring, and one of the dialogue options is like, "Oh, that was nothing," and so I didn't realize. Like I kind of thought that maybe that was a thing because the other one was like, "Oh, there was this door," and blah 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 blah, but I didn't click it, so they just were like, geez, man, like don't zone out like that. And I was like, okay, and then moved on. So I didn't actually like fully realize that they couldn't see it because I didn't go down
My
that street.
character is like me, honest to a fault. So like anytime like Yukari kept saying like, don't talk about last night, and he'd be like, so last night this thing, and she's like don't talk about it. Like,
right.
But last night. So that's interesting how we're playing our characters differently and making different choices based on that.
Mm-hmm. So after you go in the Velvet Room for the first time, you have another day at school where school isn't important. Like I think it just says early morning, you hear a rumor, and then it says after school. Like there's nothing that happens. And then you go to the dark hour, and they finally tell you, hey, we were watching you sleep last night, and you have what we call the potential, which we already talked about, is how you can live through the dark hour. And then Akihiko is supposed to be out fighting this monster, but he's starting to get his ass kicked because he's like bruised and stuff at the start of the game. So he runs back to the dorm and brings the monster with him. So Mitsuru and Akihiko fight it downstairs, and Yukari comes and wakes you up, is like, hey, take this sword. It's not 2009. It's totally normal for me to just hand you a fucking sword. And it's like, take the sword. Let's run. And you run up to the roof, and sure enough, the monster is on the roof already, it's this weird, like shadowy, made out of hands, crazy looking monster, and of course you have to fight it, and that's why you have a sword. And so in this anime cutscene that's happening right now, where the monster's showing up, Yukari is like trying to shoot herself in the head, and you're just like, I get that it's scary, but like dying, like suicide right now, like what? So like I get it, but like, is that the way out? And she like can't do it, and she drops her gun, and so the main character picks it up and shoots himself in the head.
She more gets like her ass handed to her by like a level 1 shadow. She like, so I think we had kind of have this sort of events in reverse. I think you're sleeping and you wake up one day in the middle of the like of the dark hour, and you don't know that they're watching you, because they admit that after. That's when they admit like, hey. But you get onto this rooftop, and it's this very like Spirited Away looking fucking shadow with like 1,000 different hands and a mask. Yukari's trying to summon her persona with a gun. You still don't know what the gun is for. So like, you're like, okay, great. Like, this crazy girl is like just gonna off herself. Like, and this is definitely a Shin Megami Tensei game. This is what
like. She literally said at like she was running up. She's like, "Don't worry, I'll protect you." And the moment there's anything bad, she's like, oh, "Whoops, I'm just gonna."
Well, I guess I'm not protecting you.
When I first started this game, I was like, okay, she's going to kill herself. This is on brand. I got it. But like, I was like, this is Deadly Shin Megami Tensei, whatever. But no, she ends up choking because as in the beginning of the cinematic, as you saw, she can't pull the trigger. And that's just because she's like super scared of what's going to happen. In the PlayStation 3 portable version, it goes into like a battle. It's like the battle system, like the graphics in the battle system, like it goes into that, and that's where this all happens. Like, cool. Yeah, like you see like a 3D battle version of the shadow like use Aggie on Yukari while she has the gun to her head, and then she gets knocked out, and then like the gun just slides over to your character, and then go ahead, you can go on.
Yeah, so that actually brings up something that I didn't like. I just thought it was a weird choice with the PS2 version. Is you pick up the gun and you hold it to your head, and you have no problem pulling the trigger. But instead of dying, you summon this like persona behind you. It's like this dude in armor just like chilling out behind you, and then in the PS2 version, a cinematic plays where your persona digivolves into this badass thing and goes and attacks the other one, and is a super awesome like fight scene, but you don't get to play it. And so it's one of those things that like this is a really cool battle. The game lets you battle, so it was weird that they didn't let you have this super overpowered bullshit for your tutorial battle, but you get to actually play it there, because instead of like, so you watch it happen, and then your first battle is a part of the same thing, but you're fighting these tiny little nothing version shadows. So it's really interesting that in the portable version, like it's in the like it feels the way that I wanted it to. Like I wanted it to be a part of the battle, and the way they chose.
You don't actually use Thanatos as part of the battle though. Like he just ever like pops up, and he's like in the cinematic, you see Thanatos like walloping away at this shadow. That just happens in the battle system all by itself. Like you're not even doing any controlling at all.
Yeah, like you're not controlling it, but it's part of the battle system. So then when you resume like the actual battle part after it all feels like cohesive, and like that in the PlayStation version would have been cool, but it was one of those things that like at the time no one cared, but I'm in the future and looking back on it, like I've played a bunch of the Uncharted games, and they only kick you into an actual cinematic when there's nothing fun to be doing. So like the cinematics is people sitting around talking. If you have a gun blazing Jeep busting through a wall, you're on the Jeep, you're driving through the wall. Like they let you play as much of the action as possible. So looking back on this one, where like this awesome chance to like put in the tutorial and make you feel awesome and all of this stuff, like just didn't happen. And it was weird for me, like looking back on it, that they didn't do that. And I just had to watch it the first time.
That struck me as kind of odd too. But at the same time, based on the precedent that the game had set, like what we'd already been through and how much we'd already been dragged around, I kind of expected it at the same time. I do know of other games that like they will have their tutorial put you through like a massive boss that seems terrifying, and then just to kind of teach you the ropes. But it's totally a winnable fight and that sort of thing. And there was something else I was going to say that I've already forgotten. Oh, Michael, you called him Thanatos, but I thought
we don't know that name yet.
I was going to say the persona's name is Orpheus that I saw.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Orpheus, and what you saw Orpheus change into was Thanatos. Okay. And Thanatos is the like the persona that like that everyone like people get. He's the persona of death. And so I think that's the reason why, I think that's the reason why we couldn't like necessarily control him. I mean, I can understand why it would have been a cool addition, but
that makes sense.
Also, funny thing, Orpheus is female with the female protagonist.
Really?
And when you summon Orpheus, she goes, thou art I art thou, in a female voice and everything. And Orpheus has like long hair.
On that note, I think it would have been interesting if they had named the female one Eurydice.
Oh, see, that would have been dope. Yeah. That would have been cool. I would have been into that.
For those who don't know, Orpheus and Eurydice, that's from Greek mythology. As a lot of things in this game I'm noticing are like Tartarus. Orpheus and Eurydice were married. Eurydice died. Orpheus was heartbroken, so he went down to the underworld and played a song for Hades and Persephone to convince them to let him take Eurydice back to the surface. They said, okay, but on the condition that you walk ahead of her and don't look back until you are both out of the underworld. And he agreed to it, and he got to the surface, and he turned around because he was worried about whether Eurydice was still there. She had not gotten out of the underworld, and she disappeared. Yeah.
Oh, fun fact. According to classical music, the song that he plays for Hades is the fucking Can-Can, because the Can-Can is a story about Orpheus. It's that story in a opera form. So he gets down there. It's like, please save my wife. Let me play this song.
And they were so moved. My God.
Or like not at all. That they were like, yeah, sure. Don't look back.
It's like, please take her, because I want this out of my
I just have this
presence.
picture in my head of Hades and Persephone like slack-jawed going, my God, he can.
My only image of Hades is like the Hercules Hades, which is appropriate for Persona. You know what I mean? Like, he would absolutely be a demon in Persona. Now that I think about it.
But yeah, I think that's a missed opportunity on their part. I think they should have named the female Orpheus Eurydice.
That would have been really cool.
I absolutely agree. I wanted to actually talk about the point leading up to... This is the part where it's a little bit disjointed when it comes to like the female protagonist and the way that Persona 3 Portable presents itself as mainly like a classic second person with stills sort of RPG, kind of like classic ones are, or that they were in the past. My issue, so like when we look at this main character, when you're playing as male, there's a consistent creepiness with him that aligns, especially with the little boy, because they look really similar. So you automatically get the idea that there's something more to this male protagonist, because he looks like this little boy, which is on purpose, and he's already displayed through like the cinematic and the anime cinematic that he doesn't have trouble like walking around coffins for no reason. So when he lifts up the gun and he says persona, it almost gives the indication that something's like possessing him to do so, which I guess is kind of a reason.
And like when he does that, like Yuka does it, she grabs it and holds it to her head, and she's shaking, and her eyes are closed, and she's like, no, 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 no. He looks at his eyes are wide open, just a complete blank stare as he goes and does it for the first time. Like he is a weird kid.
Yeah, but
like
very, very much like in Persona, there's always like a weird thing that happens. Like Persona gives the protagonist a lot of advantage to do weird things to show that they are special, and so. When this happened with the female protagonist, it just felt weird. It just, I was like, I don't know why I'm holding I know why I'm holding a gun to my head, but I don't see why this particular main character is doing it. And there was nothing outside of like the gun literally spiraling to her feet that indicated that she needed to pick up the gun and use it. And so I think that's why I was a little, when I was taken aback from it, because it didn't have the same effect as the main character at all. Yeah, like it was like, because she's not a weird looking main character. She's not weird at all. Like she's not. And so when she just has this gun, it's not really clear why the main character even says persona. I think that's just for novelty's sake, to be honest.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of one of those anime tropes, like I'm going to call out my attack. Or
yeah, I think that's what's happening. But it was already weird when they did that. I could almost kind of justify it because this character was already odd, and with some headcanon, you could be like, he's special, so this is how he knew. But for some reason, with this main character, I think it's because you don't see enough of her that it's just like hard to sell for me.
Yeah.
So after you summon your persona and you whoop ass, and then you have your battle tutorial, you collapse and go to the Velvet Room where you learn about social links, and then you sleep for a week, and you pick back up the game 7 days later.
Yeah, I thought April was going to be much longer. I was like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. Oh, look, I'm in a coma. Great.
Yeah. So when you wake up from your coma, you get called upstairs, and they finally tell you your secret. So I was ahead of myself. So this is where they tell you everything that's going on. Every other time you've learned stuff so far, you haven't been in the room. So it's just like an omniscient narrator has been telling you the stuff they've been going on. So the group calls themselves C's, which is Special Extracurricular something. I didn't write it down.
Oh, I took a screenshot of it. Let me see if I can find it. I took a screenshot of it. I totally forgot to write it down in my notes because I was like, I'll just take a screenshot. That'll be enough.
It's the Specialized Extracurricular Execution Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also the stupidest name in the world. He's like, oh, C's is going to do this. I was just like, please not. Just please don't any other name.
That. Yeah.
Like it's so silly to me, but I'm now committed to playing this game, so I have to live with Ikutsuki's haircut, and I have to live with the name C's. That's my bed. I made it. I have to lie in it.
This is our lives now.
So after they talk to you, it goes to the dark hour, and that little boy comes back. In my notes, I didn't realize that was the little boy from the very beginning, so I thought this was a new little boy.
He's the same little boy, just wearing
you're gonna see that little boy
attire.
a lot.
Yeah, because with like the contract and stuff, I thought it was a girl. I thought it was like a short-haired like receptionist girl or something. But so as that little boy came in and he was talking about the end, and he mentions a commitment from the last time we met, but all of the dialogue options that you can pick imply that you have no idea who he is, even though he was like a part of things earlier. You kind of still have no idea anything that's going by, and so then you fly by most of the month. The next big thing that happens is you find out that Junpei has a persona, and so he moves into your dorm, which hits the magic number of 5 people, even though your party is only 3 people. For some reason, you needed 5 to go and explore Tartarus, which is where like the actual like gameplay of the game picks up.
Yeah, that was the part where I was like, finally, I get to play the game.
Which, by the way, I mean, so for the viewers, for the listeners at home, by this point of the game, a lot of it is kind of automated, and I say that because the game is, I don't know how to put it. It's a second person. It's like a second person RPG. Like, so like this whole game's voice is done in second person, and so the game will tell you like, you're tired, take your ass to sleep. You're like, what if I want to go take a shit? It's like, you're tired, take your ass to sleep, go to bed, right? And so like you get to Tartarus, and all you really know is that when it's the dark hour, Tartarus comes there. There isn't a lot of lore in between floor 1 to floor 400, really. Tartarus is not a source of lore. So if we don't talk about Tartarus a lot, it's really genuinely because nothing happens in Tartarus. Tartarus is kind of like the mechanical barometer by which you can judge your character's like numerical progression, not necessarily so much a place of like lore.
So I have a question about this because while I was playing through my second or third time going through Tartarus, because I think I went through 2 or 3 times, my characters all started getting tired and I couldn't find an exit. I had to go up another floor to go find an exit to get out of. If I were to stay and continue adventuring through Tartarus when my characters are tired, is that going to affect their performance?
Yeah.
And will it prolong their time between when I can go to Tartarus next?
Yeah, because if you tire them out, they can become sick. And
Okay.
if they become sick, then they're just like, bitch, you thought I was going to Tartarus tonight. No thanks.
Yeah.
And if they are in your party with you while they're sick, they actually, I think they're either like weaker, or they're able to like suffer status ailments like more or something like that. It's like you don't want them to be sick at all.
Gotcha. Yeah, because so we were all tired, and I come home from school, like all of us are still tired, and Junpei goes, "Hey, we should go to Tartarus tonight," and I'm like, "No, we're not gonna go to Tartarus tonight."
If you rest on days that you're not tired, you feel better, and when you feel better, then you get like a buff that allows you to do like more critical hits and damage.
Oh, okay.
So
Now,
if you're
should you in those cases go to sleep early?
This is a mechanical choice that makes Persona 3 great, is that you have to make choices that affect both the simming part of the game in your relationships and how you mechanically approach Tartarus.
Gotcha.
Because if there are times where you know you're going to be facing like a big, because the story will have you face a big story boss by the full moon, and they'll tell you like, on the full moon this shit is going to happen, whether if you are ready or not. And if you are not ready for this, then you're going to have a really shitty time climbing up Tartarus and then fighting the like storyline boss, which you're going to eventually have to fight. So it's about the games. What that is about you're talking about the mechanic of management of the mechanics of this game. So I want you to think of social links and your charm and your academics and all that stuff in tandem with Tartarus.
Gotcha.
So you have to make choices of like, hey, do I want to be like doing bullshit today by increasing my school shit and my charm, or do I want to get extra rest, or do I want to grind things out in Tartarus? Like, that's the choice that you have to make, kind of like if you were actually a student in the game. And that's what kind of made this Persona 3 game kind of like a real gem, was that through these mechanics and this forced like paced storyline, you had to make these decisions as if you were the student itself.
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense.
So like with being tired, like you have to decide, like you can go to bed early or you can stay up and study. Like you can know, I have exams coming up in 5 days, I need to study, and you also know I have a full moon coming up, and do I want to go and get the next teleporter in Tartarus so I don't have as much to fight on the full moon, or do I want to do I want to make sure that I'm rested in time for the full moon? So you have to decide like those sorts of things, like thinking ahead. So the visual novel like dating sim part of the game has like gameplay that like matters there.
Correct.
So it's like those sorts of changes,
Yeah.
like choices, it aren't just like plot things. They're like
So
woven into the mechanics.
yeah, so for example, right after my second round in Tartarus, the next day Junpei's like, "Hey, bitch, go out to lunch with me," and I'm like, "Okay, whatever." And then you have some ramen with him, and then it says like, "Boom, your magician social link increased."
Right.
If you increase it with Junpei enough and get the magician status enough, your persona with magician will be stronger. And that is how your social links interact with your progression. And so that's why it's important to look at the story as like a fixed story in a calendar, and then you have to manage everything else, because just like in like real life or in any other story and in any other RPG, it doesn't care about the individual player. It's putting you on a timer, and that timer is that calendar. Now you have to make a wise choice about how you go about it,
which is very different from, I'd say,
every other
just
game.
about every
Like,
other
right.
RPG I played.
It challenges the user in a lot of it forces like a lot of management skill into it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't something that I was like really used to, because when you're putting like a story like Persona 3 in front of me with such drama, I like want to chase that story more than I want to grind in Tartarus. And really it's on my like second playthrough that I realized like you really have to take care of your shit when you're in there.
Well, and I'm definitely going to try and focus on Tartarus more. A lot of it was just trying to get through everything so that I'd be ready for today.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, the day-to-day thing is something that I see in like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley. It's not something that I expected from an RPG.
I wouldn't blame you. Like, honestly, like Persona 3's difficulty can take a sharp left. And if you are not prepared for that, you might get stuck in some places that are really uncomfortable, because the game, especially if you're just playing it on PS2, that iteration of Persona 3 is not forgiving.
Yeah.
Very much at all. If you're playing like FES, then the game becomes nicer. And actually, because I'm playing the portable version, I'm probably having like the best experience, because like on my second time through Tartarus, bitch, I was like already at like floor 12. Like I'm already like clearing shit. Like I didn't care. And so I remember like in Persona 2, you just can't do that. It paces you much harder.
Yeah, I got to floor. I got tired. Everybody in my party got tired on floor 2, and then I had to go up to floor 3 to find a teleporter out. So
yeah, exactly. I cleared every floor. To make sure that I could get away with it.
Before May was over, I reached my first block, which is at level 16.
Right.
So yeah, I've cleared out as much of Tartarus as I can right now.
Okay.
Yeah,
I am behind.
But the good thing is that like if you do take months in this game, or like days in this game, to like focus more on yourself, there are so many days within the month that happen that you can actually kind of make up for it if all you really focus on is Tartarus.
Gotcha.
So what it really involves is like making sure that when you do battles, like what is your secondary source of income? Are you grabbing like special, like when you get those cards that come up, make sure you either grab Maka or Yen. I'm sorry, I say Maka because I'm thinking of Shin Megami Tensei. Jesus Christ. Like, are you grabbing the yen, or are you grabbing weapons so that you can sell it? Either way, you have to make sure that like you are. Persona is a game. Shin Megami Tensei and Persona are largely games that count your inventory. And so you want your medicines, you want your somas, you want your items that restore your SP. I forgot what they're called.
I'm absolutely an RPG pack rat, and I will pick up literally everything I can find.
Yeah, Persona 3 pushes you, or Persona games push you to really dig deep into your bags to use everything that you can, and I love it for that reason. So for Persona 3, if you like need a guide, specifically I think to like manage Tartarus and when you should go and social things, I'm going to tell you to do it because we're here to talk about the story anyway. And that part of Tartarus, especially when you're playing like the original iteration, can be tough. Like, and if you're not really down to like manage it on like hardcore manage it, I would just tell you like look up a guide, see what they suggest to you, because really be thankful that this is not like Shin Megami Tensei 4, where it's like now you have to do stat allocation,
Oh,
and now you have to like, and also infusing demons in this game is also going to be a thing that we will have to do.
yeah,
So
I did fuse 2 of my personas and went, well, now I don't have this other one and I'm sad.
oh, don't worry about that, baby.
Yeah.
That'll come back. You'll get
Okay,
those.
awesome.
Don't worry about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we get to Tartarus, the main character gets elected as the leader because it's a video game, and but before you walk in, you see the Velvet Room, and everybody can't see it apparently if you choose the right dialogue boxes. But then I did not.
No,
And
you
so
can't see it at all.
Yeah, so you walk in. Igor tells you that you can summon multiple personas, which nobody else can, and that you can get your personas from battle. And then you go into Tartarus for the first time. You pretty much just get to do like a floor or two, and it really just breaks down like this is what can happen in the battle part. The battle system itself, I really like because it's pretty much your basic JRPG. Like you have skills, you have basic attacks, you have guarding, stuff like that. But with the biggest change that I've seen is the one more system, where if you
One turn.
get a critical,
It's a plus turn. Yeah.
Yeah, so you like if you get a critical or you exploit a weakness, you get to do one more turn, which like makes it so easy to grind. You're like, oh, I know these guys are weak to fire. You just go fire on you, then I get one turn. Fire on the second one, I get another turn.
This is
I do fire on the
monster thing. So this is not just like you do it once per battle and you get an extra turn and it's on cooldown. No, if there's 4 monsters on a fight and you exploit their weakness, you get in turn each time you do it to a new target. So like it can get crazy.
It does work against you though, because I noticed the monsters get that same advantage.
The monsters get the same thing.
Shin Megami Tensei, it works against you too. Fuck off. Like that. Atlas was like, hey, Shin Megami Tensei, one turn to you too. Fuck off. Like that's literally their slogan.
And then if you get all of the monsters stunned, where you hit them all with the weak point, you do one more to get them all down. You then pretty much just get to like pull them behind an alleyway outside of school and beat them down.
Amazing. It's like every teenage angsty aggression just released onto a little band of shadows. What he means is that when you exploit their weakness, they fall down and kind of get stunned, and that they hop over a turn. So in Shin Megami Tensei, the way this is called plus turns, and usually this is displayed by like a grid at the top right hand corner displaying who has the next turn. And when you exploit their weakness, it skips their turn and then grants you another. And so this can happen. And so when you stun every single enemy on the field by exploiting their weaknesses, it introduces a mode of combat that allows all of your characters to just fucking comically
I love how it's like a fucking
so
Looney
good.
Tunes cloud with a whole bunch of stars and words and shit.
But you can see how like Persona 4 and 5 are like how like this art style that people like were introduced in Persona 5 is not new. Like it's been here in Persona 3 for like a really long time.
That reminds me, one of the pictures that we're going to be putting on the Twitter is it's just of the end battle screen, but like the graphic design of this game is like top notch, like a notch above top notch. Like every JRPG, like we even exploit it in our logo, has a blue box with white text and a different colored hover that you hover over it and you select your things from a menu. But this is like weird angles and like Helvetica and all these different like really like designed graphic design, and not just like default. Like never once do I look at this and think they took the default. Like everything is meticulously made, and so like that style is like, because it's all in the menus and stuff, it's infused like the whole way. And so like
the game is stylish down to the UI. Like the it's a consistent design, and it's stylish as hell.
Yeah, it looks,
I mean, I don't even know how to put it. It just like the music. Like if the music and like art can make sense together, it does so in Persona 3 very well.
It's so good. So after our way through Tartarus, which was mostly a tutorial, you were supposed to all get tired because they wanted to teach you how tired works. You go back to school. You meet this kid named Kenji, and you find out that Mitsuru got elected student council president, and that her dad owns the school. And then you finally get some free days. Like everything has been like today after school you go home with Junpei, and today after school you go to blah. But now you got a lot more choices. So I chose to hang out with Kenji at a ramen shop, and I went into Tartarus again.
Yeah, me too.
Did you hang out with Kenji or did you do something else?
I hung out with Kenji a couple of times. In fact, I also joined the Kendo Club, and I totally blew off the Kendo Club to go talk about Kenji's weird crush on his teacher, and he's totally going to ask her out. Like, I was paying attention to this story because it was like, if I had been a teenager when this game came out, I might have been okay with that storyline. I might have been like, all right, that's cool. But nowadays, like I'm 32 years old, and I was reading this and I'm like, if that teacher accepts your proposal, that teacher should be fucking arrested.
Right?
So maybe don't do that, Kenji. But no, in order to get closer to Kenji, I have to encourage him and tell him, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And I'm just like, this is fucking awful.
I felt so uncomfortable with Kenji's storyline. I just felt like my character was just like side eyeing and like crying silently the whole time because like while eating this ramen, like, please Kenji, I don't want to talk about this. Kenji, this is so fucking weird. Kenji, please. I don't want to Kenji, please. This is such a good, like, I love this tonkotsu ramen. This is like, get me the fuck out of here. Like I can't like there are just some weird storylines in Persona in general.
I'm used to that from anime. My take on it for my own character is, I need to improve my relationships with other people in order to get more powerful. Yes, this is definitely high school, so fuck it. I'll just tell them whatever the hell they want to hear, and it'll make me more powerful, and that's all I care about.
Yeah. I wrote in my notes that social links are stressful because on Monday they're like, hey, do you want to join Kendo Club? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. Then on Tuesday I'm like, fuck Kendo Club, I'm hanging out with Kenji. I was like, why can't I meet up with Kenji after Kendo Club? Like, why does this have to take my whole night? Like, this is so stressful. Why can't I just
do you know what
hang out with people?
I don't know if it's because I'm weird, but I like that part of the game. I was like, this game teaches discipline. I should, like, you know what? This is right. Like, after school, if a kid is hanging out with his friend, he doesn't need to go to the fucking Kendo Club. He needs to go home and rest. He needs to be doing homework. Yeah, like if you know what, if I was like, I wish I were as studious as my Persona character, because I was like, like after school I would go and like go to the library, study, then go home and study, and then go to sleep. And I'm like, great, I'm accomplished. Like, look at that. Like, like this is an adult. Like I like the fact that it kind of paced it. I mean, I also feel like mechanically, if they let you do it too much, then it just would have happened so fast. You would have been maxed out so fast. So I think they had to pace it in
so another thing that I found interesting about the social link situation is at one point Junpei gives you an MMO CD called like Innocent Sin Online, I think is what it was called.
That was an actual RPG. That was an actual MMO.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
It was called. Yes, it was an actual MMO. It's called Imagine Online, and it took in place between Persona 1 and 2. No, Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2, and the character, like, so you had to create a character, and you were able to like catch demons, and you went through a storyline that was the chain of memories between Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2.
That's literally really cool.
Oh,
yeah, literally.
Oh, so I just googled it, and Innocent Sin is the subtitle for the first half of Persona 2.
Yes, it is. Innocent Sin, and it's like when the MMO thing is a reference to Imagine Online, and Innocent.
That's so cool.
And Innocent Sin is also the first title, but it's what is it? Innocent Sin and then Eternal Punishment, right? Like Innocent Sin is the first one, Eternal Punishment is the second one. You also meet a character on there called Maya, who is the main character of Persona 2.
Yeah, I was just about
That's
to talk
so
about
cool.
her.
Yeah.
You immediately meet someone in the game, and I love how they made her talk in all internet speak and use emoticons. Yeah, it's really cute.
Adorable.
They obviously know their audience, but yeah, she tells you to name your character Tatsuya, and she names her character Maya, and she's like, "Ha ha ha! Do you get it?" And I was like, "No,
Yeah.
no, I don't. But I'm gonna look it up, and then I'm gonna say I do."
Tatsuya and Maya are the Tatsuya and Maya are the main characters of Persona 2, so it's like really yeah. And if you had played the if you had played the MMO, you would have hated it. But it was not a noob friendly thing. You would have hated it, but it was really fantastic. And so like they added that reference, and I sobbed a little bit because by that time it was like already dying, and they shut down the servers years later.
And actually Maya mentioned in the midst of them playing, there's not that many people around. It seems like the game is dying, and so I thought that was really interesting that now I've got this person online that I have to build this relationship with. I also thought it was funny that it improves your link with the hermit card.
Yeah. Like that's me. I feel like add me next time, Atlas, okay? Tag me next time, please.
Yeah. Like that whole scene, I was laughing my ass off because like I was expecting you go and you play this game and it's like your academics has decreased because you wasted time, but no, it's like a social link. It's like online friends count in the world of Persona.
Yeah,
and I thought that was so cool.
Makes you a stronger person. It's a good I guess theme, like your friends make you stronger.
And so one thing real quick, speaking of references and things we had to look up, right around this time you go to school on a Saturday. And I was like, wait, why am I in school on a Saturday? So I looked it up. And in Japan, up until around 2006, most schools had a 6-day school week, and you only had 1 day on a weekend. They realized that was insane, and they dialed back to a 5-day. But there's a current political party in Japan that wants to bring it back. And so there's everyone saying like, no, look how great everyone's doing in school because they're actually working less and blah, 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 blah. And that's like a big political hot button issue that has gone away and come back in the years since this game has been released.
I remember seeing that and going like, would I be a better human? Would I be as smart as them if I went to school 6 times a week? I was like, it would force me to do something with my time. But I was really into how structured the Persona 3 life was when I was a kid. I don't know why. I was like, this is it. This is structure.
It's interesting too that you say around the time that this game came out that they had dialed back and they had pulled it back to a 5-day week because this game takes place in 2009. So they were predicting more or less that they would have the same structure in 3 years, and that was incorrect. There's another school thing I wanted to talk about. It really seems like the teachers are very apathetic and just super don't care about what they're teaching. And they just want to talk about what they're passionate about, which that's cool. It's good that you have passions about Sengoku Jidai. However, you should also teach the other stuff.
We have exams coming up, please.
And you're asking me questions about things that you've never taught me in the game. So when you ask me what kind of houses,
I just want a Persona game with just the teachers.
When you
are they all drunk in the faculty office fuck Kenji, he's such a piece of shit, he has a crush on me, I don't even know why. I would watch that these Persona teacher edition. I would buy it.
It's just a big long cutscene.
It's just I'm being tired of your shit.
There's times where you walk around the school, but everything else, all your interactions, it's just a cutscene where you talk to other teachers about how terrible your students are. But they're asking me questions about what kind of houses. What the houses were called in the Jomon period. And I'm like, how am I supposed to know that? I actually looked that one up because I got another one of the questions wrong. And so I was like, I'm not getting this wrong.
I looked up I looked up the one is like when were numbers
Oh,
invented,
that
which
was
isn't
it.
actually correct.
Yeah.
Like I looked it up and the internet like it says use 6,000. The correct answer is about 15,000 or whatever. But it's one of those things.
Yeah, no, I have been where you are right now. I was just like, this game and they're fucking fat. I was like, what? What do you mean? Like everything is right? Yeah, no,
It's
that's
so
what
crazy.
happens.
Yeah.
So after we go to school on a Saturday, the principal gives a speech that he totally Melania trumped Mitsuru's speech for. And that day, you join student council, and you literally just do it by walking in and saying, "I want to join the student council," which is completely irrespective of the democratic process that the student council represents. Like no one voted for me, and I just joined the student council. But
Mitsuru was just like, I want you here.
yeah.
So-
So then the 30th, our last day of April, we go into the Velvet Room's alternate entrance where we're introduced to what feels like it's probably the last like core like aspect of the game, which is the questing system, which I really liked because by the time I had gotten to the 30th, I had already cleared out Tartarus, and so I was like had no reason to do it. Was just going to jump in and social link until the full moon, but these quests were like, okay, now I have a reason to grind instead of just like go and fight this guy 6 times because you're not strong enough type thing, and so after that, we get to May 1st, but we're stopping technically at the first save point, and there's a lot that happens at the morning of May 1st.
I actually, I didn't realize we were stopping at that save point. I've stopped at the beginning of May 1st.
Okay.
But go ahead and talk about it, because I'm sure...
So it mostly just adds a mystery, and I want to like riff on this mystery. So on May 1st, in the middle of class, Akihiko comes to you and is like, hey, can you bring me a class roster for 2E in the hospital? And so you, Yuka, and Junpei all decide to go. And when you get there, there's a weird, shady guy that's all like cussing, and he's gruff, and he's like mean to you and stuff. But he knows Akihiko really well and calls him Aki, which is a very big thing in Japanese.
Oh yeah.
So like in Japanese, you call everyone by their last name, and then when you're good friends, you call them by the first name. But then when you're like best friend, blood brothers, Han Solo and Chewbacca, you call them by a nickname.
Yes.
And so the fact that he calls Akihiko by Aki and not Akihiko and not whatever his last name is, San, like that means like he knows something. But then Akihiko is just like, oh yeah, like he's a friend. I kind of know him. And I'm like, bullshit. I know enough Japanese to know that you're not telling the truth.
Yeah, and anyone who plays in Japan is going to immediately catch on to that as well.
Immediately, no. And so Akihiko says, and I wrote down the quote. He goes, "I know what it's like to feel powerless, and I don't want to. Never again," which is incredibly cryptic.
Yeah.
And
oh my god, I want to be you guys
I
right
don't,
now.
I don't know what it is. So Michael, don't spoil anything for us. This is the part.
I can't spoil it. This is too good. This is too good. Like this is like literally the drama of Persona 2. You're like, oh my god, this shady looking motherfucker, Akihiko. What's all this drama? Like, no, like this is exactly what people are into Persona about. Like, I cannot wait for us to learn this together, for us to clutch our pearls. Just like that's what's gonna happen here.
2 questions I want to ask Eli, even though he didn't see this last scene, but just off what I said, who like wild accusations? Like, who do you think this guy is? I don't remember his name. I didn't write it down. I don't know if he even learned it. He might have been question marks the whole time. But who do you think this guy is to Akihiko? Like headcanon that you're using, and we'll find out next week if you're right.
Yeah, just based on that, I guess he's a close relative, potentially father, maybe older brother. At the farthest, I'd say he's an uncle.
Okay,
but I would guess that he's probably father or brother.
Okay, a relative of some sort.
Wait, who are we
the gruff guy who calls Akihiko Aki.
Yeah,
we're just trying to guess who it is.
I don't know how old he is or anything, like how much older he looks than Akihiko.
he's not in a school uniform, so he's at least like older brother type or something.
Yeah. So I would guess older brother or father figure. You know, just based on my own knowledge of Japanese customs and.
So here's my, I said wild accusations. Here's my wild accusation that he is that way back, like Akihiko started Persona bullshit as like a freshman, and this was his like buddy cop partner, and something bad happened, and he got burned, and so he like doesn't like Akihiko anymore, and he doesn't like Seize anymore, and he's just like, no, fuck you guys. But like he said, as such that like buddy cop Chewbacca life debt with Akihiko, that they still like close to him because he like deserves that closeness, but there's an animosity there. That's what I see is happening. This guy
going really wild accusations. Secret lover calling it now. Secret lover calling it now.
I think everyone.
I just can't wait. It's just so. It's gonna be so good. You guys are gonna be like, what the?
I mean, I've been like that through most of this so far.
You are. You're gonna get to this. I just, I can't even say much. I know for a fact. I hope that by the time that these questions are answered, you're gonna be like, you're gonna come back and be like, Michael, just tell us,
right?
Please.
Just tell me what's going on. I'll pay you anything you want.
Like, I'll deal with it. Just don't like it. It is definitely worth paying attention to, and I can't wait till we talk about this again, so that
and you can actually talk about it.
Yeah, I can talk about this.
Yeah, and so the other thing I was going to ask is, what do you think made Akihiko feel powerless? Because he says, I don't want to feel powerless ever again. And I think in my headcanon, like, for some reason, he wasn't able to pull the trigger and invoke his persona, and that's what messed up his father, brother, uncle. And so that's why he felt powerless. I think it's something along those lines.
Yeah, that would be my takeaway from it as well. That something happened. He was either prevented from summoning his persona, or he got cold feet, a la Yukari. Something in that vein that just prevented him from doing what he needed to do and protecting who he needed to protect.
Yeah, that's what I feel like. So that's the end of the part. Real quick, before we finish up, I want to go around. I'm stealing this from Melissa. She does it every episode of Old Game Plus. What was your favorite part of this whole section, Eli?
Let's see. My favorite part from the whole section. I really liked the whole when the personas were first summoned, because that kind of started bringing the story together for me, when Yukari and the main character are standing on that rooftop and they're getting like surrounded by this big creepy shadow thing. And I love creepy things. I don't look or act like the kind of person who would like creepy things, but I do. And so like there's all these hands coming up and there's this big mask that's getting put over it. And I'm just like, oh man, we're getting to the good stuff now. And then Yukari can't shoot herself in the head, and I'm like, wondering, why is she committing suicide? I almost said Sudoku, which is a joke that my friends made. I should. I was actively trying not to say that, and then I ended up explaining. Why is she about to commit suicide? And then she drops the gun, and the only part of that wasn't there for me was main character saying persona. Like, I was like, okay, that's cheesy enough that it's almost taken away my enjoyment of this cutscene.
It ruined my immersion a little bit. It really did.
I didn't hear it because my baby was asleep at the time, so I didn't hear him say that part, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't, because I was all in at that point. I didn't hear him say
don't ever listen to it, so that you don't ever have.
Up until that point, it was perfect, and then that happened, and I was like, you almost had it. You could have had it.
That reminds me. Have you seen or heard of the Twitter that's called Title Lines?
No.
So what it is it's all these screenshots of a movie with the line from the movie where they say the title of the movie, except it's all fake. So it's like, and on that day, he truly was Django Unchained and stuff like that. Like it's one of my favorite Twitters. I'll put the link in the doobly doo so y'all can check it out. But it's
but yeah, that was absolutely like, it was where the game started to really solidify for me, and I understood more of what was going on, and I felt I felt excited to be a part of it, and I was ready to get my hands dirty and fight these shadow bastards.
For me, my favorite part was when you play the online game and you meet up with Maya, because like at that point I realized like they've thought of everything, and so like the whole time, like there's little things that I just like, oh, they are a joy. Like just seeing how alive the school is. Like they very easily could have done it like Pokemon, where you're in the biggest city in the entire world, and there's 4 NPCs in the city. But like they didn't. There's like even the ones that you can't talk to. There's like people having their own conversations and doing this and that all over the place. And like there were a lot of little moments like that. But it hit me the moment like, I'm going to go play this video game, but I just got a social link for adding a friend request on World of Warcraft. And I'm just like, that's something like working for Blizzard. Like I see that a lot. Like I know how strong online connections are. It's like seeing that like they thought of that too. And like every bit of it was just like, this game was crafted. It was not just like made and like RPG Maker made a game through a story.
Right.
Like every choice that the developers made was meticulous, and like at that point it like really clicked for me. So like not only was it funny, and like the fact that like, oh, we're doing this online game and you have a friend in this online game, like the way like they used the meta of the game of like getting a social link to just like it like made it a joke type thing, but it also just like it like clicked in the whole thing. Like that moment just like it got me. It's just like, okay, this is one of the best games.
It made it more of a game for gamers.
Yeah, definitely. What about you, Michael? What's your favorite part of this besides hearing me and Eli have no idea what we're in store for?
Oh, damn, I don't have an answer. I really liked about this session. I think my favorite, I mean, there's just so many. I think I'm really attracted to the parts that invoke the most mystery. So I liked it when the little boy showed up, because it's really easy to, when you're looking at everything that you're doing, to forget why he made you sign that to begin with. And I think it's, there's a lot of things that happen at the beginning of this game or that happen throughout the game that make you feel like the rug is being pulled underneath you, but not in a bad way. It's just more like the story is a really good story. And so coming from where I'm coming from, I had to say like my favorite moment was the kid, because I was like, oh, here we are again. Like I know what you represent, like, and I like that. It just reminds me of the story. And I'm into that. I don't think that's my favorite part that's not my favorite part of this whole game. But as far as the session at the beginning, that was it. It's that kid, what he represents is important to the story. And I think it's cool.
All right, so that wraps up what we're doing for episode 1. If you like what we do here, you can find us on the web pretty much everywhere as RPG Book Club, all one word. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/RPG Book Club, and there you can support us and offset the hosting costs. And when we get time to do our second game, people who support us can vote in a poll to decide what our next game will be. And if you want to chat with us, you can hit us up on Twitter at RPG Book Club. And we also have a Discord whose link will be in the description. So you can stop by and chat with us, say hello, say you're playing the game, flame us, tell us that we're horrible people, all of those things.
Well, we already know that part.
Everything is welcome in the Discord. This has been great hanging out with you guys. I'm really excited to be able to play Persona some more. Like I woke up early, like 2 days this week, and I was like, I want to play Persona. I was like, but crap, I already finished what we did. Like, I have to wait. So I'm excited to jump back in and play the next bit.
Yeah. Speaking of which, where are we stopping for our next session?
So it'll be the very first time that you can save at a save point on. So that was May, so it'll be June 1st.
Okay.
So
we're just gonna go month by month in each
yeah, we're
session.
going month by month. This one was really short because we were in a coma for half of it, and we started on day 8. So this next one might be more of a time commitment. It's hard for us to say because we haven't played it before and like stopwatched each section. So when we decide the things, we're just going off of. In this case, we went off the calendar. In some games, you might just go off of like the table of contents on GameFAQs or something. So each week might be smaller, might be longer. We'll just be diligent and see what's going
where
on.
it takes us. Yeah.
But
all right, I will see you guys next week on June 1st.
Sayonara.
Bye.
all right, bye.